Hey, what's up, everyone? Dave here. Welcome to episode 69 of the Pocket Mastermind podcast. On today's episode, I'm talking to Jan Cavelle about her entrepreneurial journey and the starting and running of multiple businesses and taking one business from her kitchen table through to multi-million pound turnover, and all of the lessons that she learned along the way, and the challenges that she faced, both mentally with imposter syndrome, from confidence and knowledge, all of the great things, that the ups and the downs of running businesses. So I think you'll get a great deal out of this conversation. If you do, remember, please share it with your friends, leave a comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. So with that, let's get on with the show. Have you ever questioned why it is that some people seem to have everything they could ever wish for? Health, wealth, love and happiness, but others seem to lack all of these things. Why is it the small minority manage to achieve greatness, but the vast majority fail to reach even beyond mediocrity? What are this small minority doing differently to everybody else? It can't just be down to circumstance. Billionaires rise out of poverty. Those questions have been in my head my whole life. And a couple of years ago, I decided to stop wondering and start searching for the answers so that I could help more people achieve greatness in their own lives. So join me and follow along as I uncover the secrets of the minority that the majority aren't taught, so that you can apply them to your own life to achieve your own greatness and live the life you want and deserve. My name is David Bell, and welcome to Pocket Mastermind. Jan, welcome to Pocket Mastermind. How are you?
I'm okay. Thank you very, very much, David.
Excellent. So we're going to talk today all about entrepreneurship, what it is, why you should do it, and all of that good stuff. But first of all, let's get a bit of background into you, Jan. So talk a bit about your own entrepreneurial journey, I suppose.
My entrepreneurial journey is quite a long one, it must be said, because I started avoiding going out to work almost as soon as I had my first job. And so I decided, this really was not much fun. I'd much rather work for myself. So I spent the next few years occasionally having to get work because I couldn't generate enough income, but the rest of the time doing anything self-employed or running really micro businesses. And we're talking seriously micro, and all very, very casual. But, it was good experience. I seem to be sort of regularly quote these days, but the more I write about it, the more I look back, actually, they were such hugely useful experiences, because I dabbled. I mean, even in fairness, the odd job I took for a very brief while was useful experience, because dabbling in lots and lots of things gave me so much of a varied experience that when it came to trying to do a business slightly more seriously, I'd had 3 months in a PR firm, or, I'd sold face-to-face, selling sandwiches around offices, or whatever. But, you put a lot together, and it was like a little bit of a sort of mini...
like an MBA,
MBA or whatever, MBA in business, which was quite handy, really.
Yeah, I think because a lot of people, I think, as you touch on that, I think a lot of people think, oh no, if I'm going to start a business, it's got to be the thing. And the chances are that the first business you start will definitely not be the last one, right?
No, that's for sure. I think it's got very glamorized in a way, or mystified in the last few years with the popularity of entrepreneurship. There have been so many businesses started off, as with any trend, off the back of that, people teaching entrepreneurship, coaches and incubators and accelerators and business schools, and, all of which didn't exist 20 years ago. And 20 years ago, you just get on with it, if you wanted to start a business, and of course the regulations were a lot easier then, so you didn't sort of stop off and do that till a year or so later either. You know, so you just started selling something to somebody, you know, and that's what it came down to. But, you know, it was great because actually, you know, it does demystify it, and it really takes you back to the basics. But, you know, if you sell something and you make a profit, you've got a business.
Mm-hmm.
It seems good to me, you know.
It's a good simple way of looking
It
at it,
is,
isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It can seem daunting, and it can seem confusing. So
terribly.
what
Yeah,
kind
I mean,
of touch?
all this
Yeah, sorry.
complicated
Yeah, yeah.
serialization and all this, and you know, there's no guarantee that it gives you success either. You know, if it doesn't,
No,
if it all came, everybody came out with 100% success rate, it's fantastic. But if they don't, they
no,
never did, and they never do.
no. It's the same with everything, isn't it? Like nothing's
Exactly.
100% success rate. So
Yeah.
you touched on some of the businesses there. What kind of businesses or fields have you kind of worked through?
I dread to think what ones I didn't work through actually when I was working. I mean, what most of the ones when I was working were sort of sales orientated, quite often. And actually, I spoke to somebody in employment agencies recently, and they said that it's absolutely the same. When you get somebody who comes in and to an employment agency and they can chat a bit, and you know, but the rest of their CV looks like hell, you know, you usually end up offering them a job because, you know, and that's how most employment agencies employ people. And blame the person who told me that by saying it's still the case. But, you know, therefore I did quite often work for those, you know, because it was sales orientated, and that was okay. For my own businesses, what did I do? As I say, I had a sandwich business. I had a catering business. At one stage, I sold wine for quite a while, freelance. Seems all around food and drink, doesn't
It
it? When
does,
I
doesn't
think
it?
about it, that's dreadful. I'm
There
sure
is
I
a
did
theme.
something else. But yeah, I mean, it was really anything to, you know, sort of to make a buck and keep me out of work. I mean, I did take, you know, odd freelance jobs as well. You know, I got a job doing picture research for a publishers, or for somebody who was doing it for publishers, to be more exact, for a while, which was absolutely fascinating. You know, not something I'd ever thought about, that people research books for pictures for books. You know,
True, isn't it? Yeah.
and it was great. I wouldn't have wanted to do it forever, but you know, fantastic.
And so, what was it then? You tried a few different, you started a few different businesses, and you moved on to a different. What was it then that kind of allowed you to, or you made you decide to stick at one for longer?
Absolutely. It was kids, basically. I mean, I'd helped worked with my ex-husband in a business, but when I became a single mom and my kids were very small, I just didn't want to go out to work. I wanted to be around them. And so I thought, with given my background, I thought, well, that's back to selling something, you know, working from home, nice and simple. But it accidentally it grew because I chose something that I couldn't get a decent supply of, but there was demand there, and you know, even I could see that made sense to sort out the supply, and you know, oh, you know, wow, that's growing, and you know, I can sell lots. And so in the end, I ended up going into manufacturing to sort out the supply chain, which was sort of a bit back to front, taking customer service quite far, really. Uh,
Yes.
but so, and then ended up growing over a period of 20 odd years, I guess. I grew what was quite a large business at one stage. I mean, I had sort of about 45 people working for me when it was at its largest. Which was, you know, for given the time, I mean, that's, you know, what you can do without any business training. You know, so it really isn't necessary or essential to go through business school. But yeah, it was purely driven by, you know, initially keeping a roof over the children's heads, and then that got to actually, you know, gosh, if we can sell more, that means a better future for the kids, and you know,
And so
and
when?
it's a good driver.
Oh, definitely. And when did you decide to kind of step away from that business?
Well, that was it. It was interesting. I mean, and it was a combination of things. I think I find when you get to, depending on sector, when you get to sort of 1-2 mil turnover, the business needs to morph into something else. And you know, that's all the serious business of when it becomes a bigger, scalable business. And I find that really, really hard. for a variety of reasons, which I took a long time to discover. I did actually go back and start doing courses and actually learning the more official sides of business, because I thought it must be my ignorance. But I also discovered from other people on the course that actually this is quite common, that, you know, lots of businesses get stuck at that stage. And the more I looked at it, the more I thought, okay, I can sort this out, I can sort this out, I can sort this out, you know. But actually what it came down to was, because I hadn't known enough about what I was doing, the foundations of the business to grow further were not in place, and it would have required virtually going back to square one. And by that time, physically, I was actually blown after, you know, sort of keeping at it for a very long time. And the kids had left home in any case, and I'd sort of lost my way. And so I put the whole thing together. I just thought, I've had enough. And I had an offer to pack it up, and I just thought, I'd walk away. You know, done, you know, completely. In some ways, I wish I'd sort of done a proper sellout, which I was offered to do about 5 years before the end, I think. And, you know, I should have really taken it. But anyway, I didn't. So
it can be
so
hard to let
matter.
go, though, can't it? I think a lot of people in that position struggle to let go of that thing, because it's your creation.
It is, yeah, it's your baby. And
Yeah.
you know, it's also very scary. I mean, again, for me, because it was before I sort of got to contacts and started learning, when I got the first offer. And, you know, there are these guys, you know, who dealt with businesses all the time, and, you know, sell businesses before breakfast. And, you know, in fairness, actually, it was by far and above the best offer I ever got for the business in every way, shape, form, and I was an idiot not to take it. But I mean, they terrified the hell out of me. I thought, you know, I'm setting myself up to be eaten for breakfast, you know, and so I didn't, you know, it seemed too risky to sign complicated stuff. I didn't know what I was doing, and to go into a business deal where I would have been building it up for a year and then being out, and I just, you know, stay with what I know.
Yeah.
Idiot. But there we are, you know.
Well, we live and learn, though, don't we? That's the whole point. Now,
Absolutely.
through
Yeah,
your experience, you're then able to help other people who face a similar situation, I suppose.
definitely.
That, it all
Yeah.
serves for a purpose. So let's talk a bit about entrepreneurship and what it is and what it's not, and why somebody should consider taking that approach versus the traditional go and work for somebody else approach.
Whoa, lots and lots of questions there.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Okay.
loads of them.
Well, let's say, I mean, I felt very passionately about entrepreneurship because of my background. It's, you know, it's given me, in some ways, a tough life, but, you know, just a wonderful life. I wouldn't have had it any other way. And I got involved in campaigning to promote it. I suppose about 10, 15 years ago, whenever Cameron and Clegg were sort of, Vince Cable was doing all sorts of government campaigns to promote enterprise at the beginning of the Cameron government. And, you know, it made total sense to me that more people should feel that they could take that option. You know, at that time, you know, like we were talking about briefly before, nobody, or very, very few people thought it was open to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got involved talking to schools and unis and business groups and things, you know, trying to put it forward as an argument. I think there's a big additional argument now, because of what's happened with COVID. But also it was always going to come because of automation and tech and everything else. The job market was going to change massively. You know, and the world is changing massively, accelerated by COVID. But therefore, all the safe jobs, you know, when I was small, you know, everybody would, you know, grow up. And I say when I was small, actually, I mean, I had down here in sort of the back end of Beyond, you know, I had somebody in a local school who I was sort of offering to do enterprise work for, you know, say only a year or so ago. Oh, but, you know, we've got two of our, you know, 16-year-olds into the local bank. And I was going, yeah, is that it? For your whole sort of, 120 kids, or whatever. And that's not going to be that safe.
No.
And, it used to be the case that, if you got a job in a local bank, at least, it might not be exciting, but, if that was income for life,
Yes.
and nothing's like that anymore.
No.
And
You
in many ways,
like
sorry.
you say, automation's really killing a lot of that stuff. It started off with the kind of factory-based jobs where automation started to come in, and now it's moving into the clerical space where accountancy and lots of other jobs that have been done by human beings are all being done automatically by AI and computers now. So it is a huge
absolutely. And, in fairness, who can blame the business owners? There's, there may be the initial investment, but there's no, hassles of having a team. It's all automated, which makes a lot of sense. But it means that even if you work for somebody, you're going to have to upskill and probably sort of change jobs beyond all recognition every 5 to 10 years. And, your job is going to be continually at risk. So the big argument against going self-employed or starting a small business that used to be security and safety no longer exists.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important to take on board, firstly. And I think it's a way of two things. I think it's a way of taking back control. And I think it's a way of, even if you're starting a side hustle, it's a way of recession proofing yourself. That if you think, don't know what's going to happen with my company in the next 5 years, having a slow growing stream of income from something on the side means that you have you're in a much stronger place if the awful thing happens that you are called in and told, sorry chum, you're out. You've got actually you're not going to be as up the gumtree as you might otherwise have been.
Yeah, this is true. Do you think that the narrative might be changed? Has it changed? Does it? If it not, it needs to within schools around. When I was at school in the 90s, the story was go to school, get good grades, get a good job, and that was it. Get a good. Everything was about get a good job. Not that many of us listened. I can't say we all paid attention to my school. But the narrative has been there, and then I really look at kind of the millennial generation that followed me, and they were very much heavily sold the university dream more than ever before, and record numbers of people went to university to go into this safe corporate environment that turned out not to be safe, because every 2 years, every company hires McKinsey and Co. or another consultancy firm to come in and hack a third of their work so they can balance the books again and then actually rehire. And so I wonder whether now we are in that experience where we're kind of oversupplied in the corporate world, whether the narrative has started to change at a school level or not.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, it brings me back to what I was saying about, because it was just pre-COVID and I'd moved down here and volunteered to the local sort of enterprise board and said, I'd done all this stuff before. And they certainly told me that actually it's completely out of fashion in the schools to encourage enterprise of any entrepreneurial stuff of any sort. Not interested in speakers about it, not interested in entertaining it as a possibility again, which is so out of sync of what's happening. Is just absolutely mental to me, which I did mutter, and he said he agreed with me, but I don't know whether he did or not. Maybe he was just a nice man.
It seems more to me like it's just a business funnel for universities to make a shed ton of money.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Yeah, exactly. It's all tick boxes, isn't it?
Yes. So with entrepreneurship, obviously, there's a level of freedom, particularly if you design your lifestyle and your business at the same time and not forget one or the other, because you kind of have to consider the two together, otherwise one's going to swallow the other one. So what are some of the other benefits that you've had from entrepreneurship? Obviously that freedom to choose, but what else would you say?
I mean, I think you can actually design a life a lot easier. You know, you can decide whether, for example, you want a small business with a lot of freedom, you know, maybe even self-employed, or, you know, just sort of one or two of you, where, you know, you can, I mean, when we were that small, I mean, you know, we were, if we wanted to go to the pub on a Friday, you know, so that's the pub again, dear me, I don't know, it must be near the end of the week,
I tell you
but
what, it's a lack of being able to go to the pub for so long. That's the problem.
I know. Yes, I
On our
honestly
mind.
suddenly got withdrawal
Yeah,
symptoms
exactly.
today. But, you know, we would stop work on a Friday afternoon because we felt like it would make up the time on a Sunday afternoon, you know. But that you have that completely sort of lived by design with small business, but obviously it doesn't bring in the big bucks. Alternatively, you can decide, you know, I actually want to aim for the sky and plan out a huge business, which will probably take or a sort of not quite a unicorn maybe, but, you know, that sort of huge growth. And, you know, then you're going to have to focus and you're going to have to live and breathe it for 10 years. But, you know, you've got all these choices that you simply wouldn't have otherwise. And, you know, because it's, you know, a lot of the decisions are made upstairs in the boardroom or whatever.
So true. Yeah. So what are the let's say somebody now listening to this and thinking, well, I'm tempted. Where would you suggest somebody starts if they're considering an entrepreneurial route, whether they're in a corporate role or a business at the moment, or even if you're younger and you haven't even gone into the workplace yet? What would you say?
I'm very, I mean, I know I'm old fashioned and about this, but I do still believe that a really good place to start is selling, because so many companies come unstuck that they come up with a wonderful idea for a product or whatever, and, you know, tech, particularly in this day and age, and, you know, we've got this great concept and it's so fantastic. And, you know, but you say, you know, so who's going to buy it? I don't know, but it's fantastic. You don't understand. It's fantastic. It doesn't matter if something's fantastic, you know, if it's not a viable product, if it's not answering somebody's pain. You know, as the saying goes, which if you don't know means you know, it's some customer, or preferably a lot of customers, have a problem that needs fixing. And unless you're hitting that pain point, you haven't really got a business. And you want to start by exploring and understanding just how vital that is. Because as I say, more and more I speak to customers, to companies rather, who are starting up, and like I say, they've got these great ideas. And I mean, there's a famous quote by somebody whose name is going to escape me this morning, but which says 95% of products fail. Now, I don't know if that's an absolutely accurate proportion, but it is not far off that, I think. You know, the product is immaterial. It's your effect on the customer. And unless you sell somewhere, it doesn't matter how small, it doesn't matter if it's eBay, a market store, or whatever, you don't get that focus on, you know, what the customer wants. And, you know, really successful entrepreneurs have told me, you know, we've set up this amazing tech company, you know, but we got it wrong and we nearly went out of business because we forgot about the customer.
Yeah.
So yeah.
In this day and age, there's kind of everything's become, there's just so much crap out there, isn't there? It's products coming out of everyone's ears, and no wonder so many of them fail.
Absolutely.
There's so
They
much
always
junk in
did,
there we just
you know.
don't need.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. And, you know, coupled with, and as I say, I know this is old-fashioned of me, but coupled with the fact that, you know, for us Brits have never liked the idea of sales. You know, it's something pushy, it's horrible, it's, you know, not something nice people do, you know, which is, I think, unfortunate, you know, because that concept of sales is so out of date. It's not true. You can't, I mean, with the internet, people know what's going on. You can't sell like that anyway. You can't foist off goods on people with Encyclopedia Britannica lies, you know, so you have to sell properly anyway. But, you know, it's because it's got this bad name. People leap to thinking, oh, well, you know, if I learn some clever stuff on the web, the stuff will sell itself. And it just doesn't work like that.
No,
unfortunately.
no, it doesn't. You know, solving that problem, that pain is, I can't remember who penned this phrase, but it was, you don't sell the drill, you sell the hole.
Yes.
People don't
Yeah,
buy,
love it.
people
Yeah,
don't buy the drill, they buy the end result. And the same is with every product. You're looking around and you've got an issue, and a good place to start is quite often your own issues, because how many times do we unconsciously say, God, I wish someone would make that, or I wish
oh
someone would do
yeah,
this better, I wish, why don't we do that better? Why don't we have a go and come up with the solution? We've already identified the problem, and the chance of us
absolutely.
being unique and a special little snowflake are very, very slim. If we've got that problem, lots of other people are likely to.
Definitely, David. Yeah, no, you're spot on. I couldn't agree with you more. You know, it is what are you stuck with solving?
Yeah, but
What's irritated you today?
yeah, exactly. But I think we get, because we're kind of trained, you know, go back to the school part, trained to go and get a job. We kind of see it as being someone else's responsibility to
Yeah,
solve the problem and provide us with some tap that we can get on Amazon, you know. Um,
yeah,
but we could. It's never been easier now, because access to manufacturers and suppliers is easier than it ever was. There's so many of them. They're all over the world. There's plenty of them in this country. I think lots of people automatically default to the cheap Chinese manufacturers, but I think there's a lot of good manufacturers, small manufacturers in this country that could make just about anything.
definitely. And you know that, I mean, that's one of the plus points. I mean, the tech has opened up the entire world. It's opened up the entire world for talent that you can get on board if as a small business. You know, it doesn't matter if you don't have to be living in the same town anymore unless you've got a storefront or something.
Yeah.
What if they when they reopen? But
Some of them
you know,
reopen.
you can work with anyone anywhere, you
Yeah.
know, and create a company like that, which is astounding. And the same goes, as you rightly say, for marketplaces. You can tap into that pain point in Madagascar or Tibet, but it doesn't matter if you find something that's going to sell like hotcakes.
That's the other thing, you know, you touched on there, is being able to bring in the support to
Mm,
fulfill roles within your business on a freelance basis effectively, you know, with platforms like Upwork and Fiverr and all of the others that are out there. You can then bring in resource at a cost that's not, you know, it's not prohibitive at all, really good pricing, and you can use on a needs base, you can build a
exactly.
virtual team on a needs based kind of structure.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, without getting too political, I think that's unfortunately where we're out of step in this country at the moment, because there's all this clamping down on the self-employed and a lack
Yeah.
of support for the self-employed, where actually, you know, that's precisely what companies need and what companies are using, and where people could get work, which is a shame. But I mean, you can still do it if you work it. But I think you know, it's wonderful for companies to be able to do that.
Yeah, and it also the freedom for, depending on what kind of business you decide to run, but potentially you could run it from anywhere in the world as well. So you have the ability to travel while you work, and you can go to nice
Absolutely.
places and go and sit in the sunshine rather than
Digital
blizzard and
nomad
rain.
living the dream. Yeah.
Exactly.
You
Yeah,
know, I mean, how bad is that?
it's definitely worse things, and you can earn decent money and a good, you know, a very good living, even as a, you know, but largely as a solopreneur in that kind of field. You know, if you,
Definitely, yeah. And particularly, you know, if you want to sort of upheave and go and live in one of the cheaper countries, you know, you know, you can have an amazing lifestyle on a paradise island somewhere in one of the cheaper areas, you know, and working on your laptop, you know. I mean, it's just an incredible thought. And you can't exactly do that working for the local bank.
no, no, you certainly can't. What would you say if you could go back to your younger self when you were starting on this journey? What would your best piece of advice be?
I would have worked a lot harder at getting rid of my negative voices. You know, I was very low on confidence and very blocked by imposter syndrome and all that sort of thing. You know, and looking back, that was really a bit silly because I got further than a lot of people did. You know, and we're all different and we've all got pluses and minuses and all the sort of, you know, obvious things that I don't now know, but it's taken me a very long time to be comfortable in my own skin, and I wish I'd worked that earlier.
What was it that's helped you to break through those kind of limiting beliefs and that imposter syndrome. It's interesting that this conversation comes up quite frequently,
Does
actually.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's an important conversation to have, because I think, you know, limiting beliefs, our own self-doubt, is the number one killer of all dreams. Most of us don't even dare to dream in the first place, because we believe we can never do that.
Yeah.
Particularly been programmed, you know, through the education system. So the doubt's already been put in your mind. That's not what you're supposed to do, right? So enhance it by you know, we do it to ourselves as a natural safety mechanism anyway. I'd be interested to, you know, how you've kind of moved through that over the years.
I think, I mean, it took me really till I had time, firstly. I think, you know, during the years I had a business, you know, you're always firefighting, you're always scrabbling. And, you know, as I say, towards the end, I was going 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, trying to scale the damn thing. And, you know, so I was constantly questioning, you know, whether I was absolutely useless and pointless. But you know, I had just as badly when I was successful and award winning, you know, so it didn't make much odds. But once I had time to actually step back from that, you know, when I stopped having businesses and actually started writing full time instead, you know, I had time to put in much better practices of self-care, because I was terrible for that, and sleep properly and all sorts of things, and actually work and to spend a bit of time working through it. I mean, I'm an affirmations person, you know, oddly, I think in some ways with my personality, which tends to be a bit brusque and if I'm not careful, but you know, but no, you know, I get all woo woo about affirmations. I think they're really, really helpful in training the mindset, and I meditate more now and all that sort of thing, which I would never have had time or, you know, to do when I had a business. I was terrible for. I think a lot of entrepreneurs find it really difficult to see themselves and their self-care as a priority, you know, because we tend to think it's we've got to put the business first, otherwise the business will suffer. We've got to put our teams first because, you know, that's other people, and you know, you forget it, you know, and unfortunately that's your undoing in the end.
Yeah, and it's but we have to remember that without us, if we don't look after ourselves and we fall apart, everything else comes crashing in eventually, right? You can only sustain it for so long.
I
So
know. I was very bad at it.
I think most of us are, right?
Yeah.
It's definitely something we have to learn. And interestingly enough, you know, I was watching a documentary last night with Bear Grylls and Johnny Wilkinson, and Johnny Wilkinson was talking about, like, he had terrible fear of failure and all sorts throughout
Really?
his career. Yeah. Oh, you would never believe it, would you? But one thing
No.
I found very interesting as a kid, a very young kid, he wrote his goals down, and his goals were play for England, win the World Cup, and a bunch of other things.
Wow.
And he said it went from, he used to write them down, and then he became so obsessed with them, they stopped being a want to and they became a must do. Like, his whole being, but that kind of partly contributed to his fear of failure, because he thought he was, in case he'd never get it. So I think it's a great example, as you talk about affirmations.
Yeah.
He used a similar kind of thing from a very young age, and those written goals turned into reality.
Absolutely. I mean, if it helps anybody, I mean, as part of mine, you know, I'd always wanted to write before I had a business and everything else, and life took over. But you know, when I started using them again, sort of 4 or 5 years ago now, you know, one of them was to have a book published. And you know, this year, what have I done? I've had a book published. So
amazing. Let's talk a bit about the book then. What's the book? Give everyone a bit of an insight into what the book's about and where they can find it.
The book is called Scale for Success. It's published by Bloomsbury, and it is about growing a business. In essence, it's talks about growing a business between 1 and 10 million, but actually it is full of a lot of stuff that would be useful to anybody with a business of 100,000 turnover. I wrote it originally because of my experiences of problems with growth and not putting the foundations in right and everything else. But I also got some entrepreneurs I know, and in the end some others from across the globe to help with their wisdom and advantages, and they tell their stories, which make fascinating reading because they're extraordinary people, and how they built their businesses, and also how the particular subject that they talk about, because it's all done sort of one entrepreneur per subject, so one might talk about sales or whatever and how that's impacted on their life and their business, and what their tips for anybody else are. So hopefully it will help some people in business.
Yeah, very
and make enjoyable reading as well, I hope.
It's always a bonus.
Indeed, yeah.
You want to enjoy these the kind of business how-to kind of help books, rather than it just being
I mean,
manual, right?
people have said it's sort of not your normal business book, because it was written genuinely for for people to enjoy the writing and the stories, as well as the actual factual stuff of which it's stuffed, thanks to very, very wise people who contributed.
Amazing. So what's as you talked about kind of taking on a bit more interest or more focus on your self-care, what kind of routines have you introduced? Do you now have a morning routine? Do you have evening routines? Is it spread throughout the day?
I do. I mean, I'm in the morning, I do my affirmations without fail every single day. And I meditate every day. I was doing that in the mornings, but that seems to have drifted a bit, and I tend to take a breather and a break. I might go back to it, but I do a much longer one at weekends. Even if I do 10 minutes because I'm rushed in the day, it's still something. It's some chill time, and take it down a notch. Whereas at weekend, I might meditate for an hour each day. And then I walk. I'm not hugely physically strong, so I don't kick around a football or something hugely athletic, but I do walk every day, even if it's local.
Walking's important. I think getting outside is important. I've
absolutely
tried to enforce this more recently, because even though I go cycling and stuff, it's sporadic because of weather and that kind of thing, but what I've tried to do is enforce a walk, because what I found during lockdown was sometimes if the weather was bad, so I couldn't get out cycling, I wouldn't leave the house for 3 days, 4 days. I was like,
I know, it's so easy to do, isn't it?
On a Friday afternoon, after being locked in since Sunday, I think this is good for me, and it's not good for my mental health. It's not good for my physical health.
No, absolutely. And walking, you can just get up front door, wherever you are. So yeah, I mean, I'm a definitely pro walking.
Definitely good. If you could spend a day with one person, who would that person be?
I have to say this is not very exciting, but it's truthful, or not very exciting to me, but not very exciting for anybody else. But my son lives in Australia, so I'm afraid it would be him.
Yeah, I think we can accept that as a good answer, to be honest.
Well, it's been tight, particularly tough because we haven't seen each other for a while anyway, and now of course travel's banned between the two and has been for a long time, and and you think, are you ever going to see them again? It gets horribly emotional. So yeah, I'd give everything for a day with my son right now.
I know quite a few people in a similar situation,
really?
With relatives. Yeah, whether I know I've got friends of mine who have moved to Australia a few years ago that their families are all back here that they can't see, and vice versa. So it's siblings, parents,
exactly.
It's all over the place.
Very tough. Very tough. It's not that you necessarily have travelled though. In fact, we were planning to, but it's the fact that you can't makes you really panicky.
Yes. Yeah. It's no control, is it? There's
you don't
have the
exactly.
Choice, and that's human beings. We're not very good when we don't have that.
No, I'm terrible. Absolutely terrible.
It's crazy. Before we wrap up, is there any final advice you'd give to anybody who maybe wants to pursue an entrepreneurial career, or
try it? Definitely try it. Even if it is a side hustle, I mean, of course it's not for everybody, but it might well give you the bug, and if it does, it's like I say, it's just, to me, it's just fantastic. And I think it's really, really worth considering to have that flexible future these days.
Definitely. And like you say, you can have it go pretty, fairly cheaply in a lot of areas.
Absolutely.
The risk is relatively low, and you could do it as a side hustle, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
You reduce the risk further, but give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, as I'm prone to saying, but a market stall, selling on Etsy, selling on eBay, all those things, we could take virtually no capital outlay, and they just give you a feel of starting to think, why does that work? Why does that not work? Why do customers want that, but they don't want that? And, and you start, it's a business training.
Yeah, so true. Where can people find you, Jan, and where can they get hold of your book as well?
They can get hold of me via my website, which is jancavelle.co.uk. And I'm on all the sort of normal social channels as well, particularly Twitter and LinkedIn, but I've got a little bit of a presence on the other two. And book-wise, Amazon clearly, but any good bookstore when they reopen also should have Scale for Success.
Brilliant. Jan, it's been amazing talking to you, and hopefully we'll do it again at some point in the future.
Sounds lovely, David. It'd be great. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's been a real pleasure.
Great. I really appreciate you giving up your time, and we'll speak soon.
Lovely.
Cheers, Jan.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening to this conversation. If you enjoyed it and you'd like to hear more similar episodes, head over to pocketmastermind.com, where you'll also find the links mentioned in this conversation. And if you haven't done so already, please leave us a review. It will really help us to get our message out and let more people know about these episodes. So leave us a review, leave us a rating, hit the subscribe button, and please share with your friends. Until next time, thank you again for listening.